Well, welcome everyone. Like Gretchen said, I am an Alive board member and I'm excited to be here to be able to introduce Brian today. I want to go over a few things with you before we get started, our housekeeping items and agenda. So basically, I am just very pleased to be here, and I want to remind you that the session is 75 minutes long. So if you can't stay past the hour and you're a member of Alive, you can always log into Alive's website later and watch the replay. We hope you are able to do that, but if not, you can contact us with questions on how to get there. So a brief overview of our agenda today. We're going to have time for questions and discussions afterwards, and you can also enter questions in the chat as you go, and I'll be keeping an eye on it. If you have any trouble with audio or visual today, the options are that you can keep us streaming in your video on your computer, but call in from your phone with audio only. So you would mute it on your computer and just be using the audio from your phone. And if you're having trouble with your bandwidth, sometimes calling in by phone can help because it puts less work on the computer and derails some of it to your phone. If you have any other tech support issues, you can put them in the chat box to presenters only. And Gretchen here, our association manager, will assist you. So when you're using the chat box, just be aware that there's some options. You can set it to go to everyone or just the hosts and panelists. So make sure you are setting it to reach the people you want to reach before you put something in the chat. And I mentioned I'll be monitoring it. So let me now go to introduce Brian today. So Brian Rosenbaum is an MSSW CBA and is a Southern California native with 15 years in U.S. and international nonprofit experience. And he earned his BA in psychology and Spanish at UCLA and his MSSW at Columbia University School of Social Work, where he specialized in program development and community organizing. He also serves as Community Engagement Director, overseeing strategy and execution of Imagine LA's volunteerism and mentorship program, individual, corporate, and event sponsorship fundraising, community partnerships, communications and marketing, annual family fun and fundraising events, systems optimization and management, and advocacy efforts. So that's a lot. He led the organization's 2020 rebrand, leads the Community Champions Group, and co-leads Imagine LA's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion initiatives. That's amazing, Brian. So I will turn it over to you to get started with the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so many capes we all wear. We used to say hats, now I say capes because we're doing so much. And I know everyone on the call is as well. Thank you, Alana, and thank you to Alive for the opportunity to present today. I'm just personally really excited to present to a lot of people who do what I do. I think sometimes with presentations, you get people from all walks of the nonprofit world, and everyone's doing something different. But today we get to talk about something really specific, which is the major points of building strategic volunteering partnerships during COVID and after. My presentation will also touch on development and fundraising, because rarely do we create partnerships for just one purpose. And for the same reason, we'll talk about how strategic partnerships can support your organization's marketing, communications needs, and much more. Now, if your organization is anything like mine, the work didn't stop because of what happened in 2020. And in fact, our communities were and still are being left even further behind. Whether you spend your days thinking about education or healthcare or criminal justice reform or the environment or homelessness, COVID and our nation's reckoning with white supremacy have made our work even more critical for our communities and our people. So knowing this, I believe, and I think by the end of it you will, that strategic partnerships deserve a little bit more of our attention, because the seeds that we sow today can produce fruit for years on end if we cultivate these plans thoughtfully. Virtually or not, we can develop game-changing volunteer partnerships during this time. And I hope that almost all of the tactics I'll share in the next hour or so can be equally useful for those normal times if and when they return. So here are our learning objectives for the session. We'll discuss what makes a strategic volunteering partnership, how to identify potential partners, how to engage them and get that ball rolling, and then how to cultivate and steward the relationship to be truly transformative for both you and the partner. One more note before jumping in, any partnership that is driving volunteerism can also drive a ton of other benefits for our organizations. So volunteerism will be a big part of this conversation, but I'll draw a lot of other connections as well, because as I mentioned, we wear all those capes, and more sophisticated partnerships only mean greater impact for our organizations and our constituents. So a couple words about why I'm in front of you. As Alana mentioned, I am a social worker, so that is the hat that I wear first and foremost every day. Everything I do is in the service of my clients. My days are spent as community engagement director at Imagine LA, where I oversee all sorts of things. And just one sentence about us: we work with families who have exited homelessness and are working hard every day to exit intergenerational poverty and create a better life for their families. So many of the examples that I'll pull are from my current work, but I'll also talk about previous work. My nonprofit career started in volunteer management, but again, that's just one piece of the partnership journey. And finally, I'm a gardener. So I know that a healthy avocado tree starts with fertile soil, but they need a lot more care than just that. So let's start at the basics. What is a strategic partnership? Here's my definition. A strategic volunteering partner is an external group that collaborates with your nonprofit to create and execute activities to advance the goals of both groups with a focus on volunteer engagement. So I want to hone in on 3 points there. Collaborates, actively cooperating. If that cooperation ever starts, they're not a real partner. They're a bully telling you what to do, or maybe you're taking advantage of that partner. Either situation is not equitable and not accountable. Second, you're creating and executing plans together. You're both at the table. You're planning and you're activating. It's not a group project where one person is doing more work than the other. Again, not fair, not sustainable, and probably not in your best interest. And finally, strategic partnerships advance the goals of both groups. If this relationship ever stops adding sufficient value for either group, I think it's time to consider whether they're truly strategic, or are they kind of like a vestigial organ, like kind of your appendix, and they're just sitting there. Why are we working together if we're not getting something out of it? At first, a lot of partnerships can feel really transactional. You both have needs, you've done a little bit of math, and you have a better chance of meeting those goals if you work together. And to some extent, these are okay. I've had laundry lists of partners who have blasted volunteer opportunities to, hoping they'll do what they say and trickle the word down to their members. And when they do, that's great. But more often than not, they were partners in names only. They weren't really strategic, they were convenient. But over time, and when done correctly, transactional relationships can give way to transformative partnerships in which both groups are not only meeting their KPIs, but they're growing in their capacity, their abilities, and their value to the community. So a little bit about avocado trees, because I am a Californian. Healthy plants start with healthy soil. That's engagement, the introduction of the plant to their new partner, the dirt. When we engage partners effectively, we build a foundation that sets the relationship up for long-term success. If we neglect the health of the soil, even before we put that tree down, we don't create the conditions for partnership and action, the tree will never be all it can be. Next, we need to get this tree healthy. In other words, we need to cultivate it. Healthy saplings require constant care to grow strong and healthy. That means thinking carefully about sunlight and water, picking off the bugs and pruning so we get good air circulation in the right shape. In other words, maintenance that promotes growth. And finally, we want big, fatty avocados, not just this year, but year after year. Continuing to care for the tree is stewardship, driving wins together and stewarding the relationship for long-term sustainability. So let's jump into a quick interactive activity and let's use that chat feature. So under 2, make sure you're chatting to everyone, putting it in the chat right now. And I want to know, what are your organization's top 2 volunteer related needs that partnerships can support? Just drop them into the chat. Maybe you are needing episodic volunteers, right? You're doing mock interviews or you're doing beach cleanups. They're not regular, they come sporadically, but you need people for those episodic volunteering opportunities. Maybe you need event crew, set up, cleanup for your 5K, for your family fun events. Maybe you need long-term volunteers like mentors or recurring deliveries. Maybe you need skill-based volunteers, IT, marketing projects, managed projects. Maybe you need in-kind donation drives. Like I consider that volunteering, absolutely. You need food, you need diapers, you need mice, so whatever you need. And there's plenty of other as well. So Joanna, some episodic and mentors, awesome. We're in the same group there. Non-clinical activities, cool. Nancy, what is a non-clinical activity? Tutoring and adult skill-based newsletter volunteer, cool. Research and project, yes. Projects are big. People want to make a difference. They're hungry. Yes, big sister, little sister, outreach sessions. Cool. I love all these. I think all of these have a place in the world of partnerships and how they can support. So thank you for chiming in. So when I think about how outside partners can support us nonprofits, I generally land on about 4 buckets. Program is the mission. It's the thing that every partner thinks of first. And absolutely, volunteer recruitment is a big one. But they can also support through in-kind donations to offset your organizational expenses. They can help recruit new clients, like a church that might run a food pantry who might be interested in your services. And they can support your event themselves with spaces or donations. From a fundraising lens, partners may be able to provide funding, whether that's through event sponsorships or general grants. Companies in particular can help with all levels of donor cultivation, from gala attendee recruitment to providing space, to maybe they pay for the catering, to providing speakers. And of course, corporate and community leaders can make great board members or help make introductions. From a communications and marketing lens, support can come in the form of digital marketing, like sharing your volunteer needs in groups' newsletters or on their intranet. And if you're not familiar with that term, an intranet site is an internal website for staff to access news and opportunities and forums, often more common at big companies, but sometimes at smaller companies as well. Other ways that partners can help build our brands is through thought leadership or speaking opportunities. We're experts on something that they are not. And we can lift all boats through co-branding, whether that's via event marketing, putting their logos on those hygiene kits, or partnering on broader community activities. And lastly, there are those items that CEOs and directors lose sleep over. Technical assistance with your nonprofit's hairiest issues, like finance or technology, sharing resources or expertise to support your equity, diversity, inclusion work, or those once a year or once a decade opportunities, like a rebrand or an overhaul of your development operations system. These kinds of advanced volunteerism can be game changers for your organization. And to cap off this section, I've heard some feedback, especially from corporate partners, that they sometimes dread the ask that comes from nonprofits because all we do is put our hand out and ask for money. That's what they say. That's why we have to understand all the ways that partners can get involved and engage them as 360-degree partners, like not just as ATMs. Folks who understand all the ways that someone can plug in, all the colors of the Rubik's Cube, will always have the upper hand on someone who's just asking for money. So we'll integrate that into more pieces of this. But it's not just us who benefits from partnerships. We add partners to our values as well. Before I get into this, I was talking with kind of a mid-level VP of a local, but pretty big insurance company the other day. I was learning about their foundation work, about their community engagement, involvement, kind of philanthropy approach. Learned a lot, and then I asked him, great, so what can nonprofits do for you? What are your goals? And he was silent. He was stunned. He literally said, I have never been asked that before. I don't even know how to answer. How do other groups answer? Like he wanted me to give him the answer. And so I essentially went through this, in 2 minutes, and the dude was shocked. He was stunned. And it was stunning to me that he had never thought about the shared value that we can have. So again, you will have the upper hand if you think about these. Again, how do we benefit? or I'm sorry, how can we support them? I believe the greatest value that we add to partners is around member engagement. Whether it is a company, a faith group, or a civic group, they are really, and especially given the pandemic, they're desperate to keep employees happy and congregants in their pews and members involved. So community involvement supports these retention goals by creating shared experiences and fostering meaning making. And the photos that we send them will also support their member recruitment or employee recruitment, because people want to be with happy and connected people. And in addition to helping them create a positive group culture, we also create opportunities for skill and capacity building. Back to communications, we help partners elevate their brands and their message. We provide them with great stories and content for their internal and external communications, which strengthens their reputation in the community and demonstrates that community impact that they are obligated to create because of the social contract. And lastly, every group has an impact mission, whether it is their formal corporate social responsibility, their CSR platform, their faith-based values, or a specific area of focus like fraternities and sororities often have. We offer them a way to live up to their values. And again, they have to. Just remember that. We offer something to them. So I want to jump into one poll, and this is sort of a moment of vulnerability poll. A strategic partner is an external group that collaborates with your nonprofit to create and execute activities to advance the goals of both groups. Actively collaborating, co-creating and executing, and symbiotic. So I want to know from you, what % of your current volunteering partnerships would you consider truly strategic? If you have 100, is it 10? Is it in the 15s? Is it in the 25s? Is it in the 35s-ish? Is it in the 45s-ish? So please drop your vote in the chat. Play the Jeopardy music in your head. And when we've got quorum, let's give that poll. Again, actively collaborating, co-creating and executing, and you are getting out of it at least, if not more, than what you put into it. Let's give 10 more seconds. Hey, here we go. Okay, that's a pretty even spread. That's good. Although with 30 people on the call, that means that the 60+% are less than 30, right? All of us, almost all of us are under 40, and that's for me too, right? We have so many partners, and they tend to be more convenient than strategic, and that's okay. We're all in process. So if you are a baby volunteer program with 0 partnerships, Paula, I love that. Let's talk about how to find potential partners. When I think about building real volunteering partnership, I consider 4 sources. The first is current underutilized partners as a great place to start. Every business knows it's easier to maintain a customer than to attract a new one. That's why you're getting all those emails from J.Crew and Marriott saying, come back, come back. Every one of us can be more strategic with our current partners. Low-hanging fruit refers to groups who are already supporting your mission, but you've never gotten them past that one thing. Maybe they make a yearly donation, maybe you do a signature event together, maybe it's a group that was once a solid partner and you've sort of drifted. You're connected, but not strategically. Second-degree relationships are just one email handoff away. So those are the folks who your board members might know, or your staff want to bring into the fold, or maybe it's the company that your top volunteer works for. This idea of using force multipliers to bring in their networks, their book clubs and their faith partners and their companies and their family reunions. This is an unsung hero, I believe. And finally, cold research is always an option. I'm constantly on the lookout for groups who align with my organization's mission or could meet our key needs, or simply as are in the same sandbox as us, kind of however you define it. So diving a little deeper, here's how I generally think of partners and some ideas of where to prospect. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but just a few. Within civic groups, don't forget a national group with local chapters. groups like Rotary or Kiwanis. Within colleges and universities, local alumni groups is my best kept secret. For example, the Stanford Young Alumni Group in Los Angeles has more than 1,600 members. So that's a Northern California university with a Southern California chapter. Connect with a handful of groups like that and your reach multiplies really fast. They're really easy to find on Facebook as well. If you search under groups and you just search alumni association or chapter and then your city, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Among corporate partners, professional associations is another, I think, best kept secret. There's a professional group for every identity and sector on the sun. So whether you're looking for Latino real estate professionals or Asian American Pacific Islander librarians, there are literally groups of those people. How can you make inroads with an alumni association? We'll talk about that. Every faith group is trying to live out their faith in action, but don't forget about local interfaith groups. I feel like they fly under the radar. They often don't have as strong of a sort of social media or online presence, but they can make great partners because their members themselves come from their own faith groups. So it's really the middle of a snowflake and it just fractals out once you get in the den. Within government, libraries have community rooms and they can be helpful and they may allow you to post flyers. I'm not a huge fan of flyering because ROI is generally pretty low, but they can be a great strategic partner if they have, especially if they have services that your clients can leverage or spaces or opportunities that you can take advantage of. So don't ignore them. They're worth looking at. I think foundations are rarely a good place for volunteer recruitment, but if someone's funding you, they want to see you succeed. They can often be a great second-degree connector to a resource that you need to tap into. Online resources are abundant. We know that, and everyone wants to be the next big thing. Everyone's trying to get you to create an account and upload all of your activities. Reality is, in my experience, most people are still going to Volunteer Match and local Points of Light hubs. So my suggestion is to be active and engaged there. I've also had pretty good success with Work for Good, which allows you to post a volunteer opportunity for free. You have to go into like the pricing section, but you have to renew it each month. So if you just set a calendar reminder, you're all set. Finally, influencers and board members can be powerful megaphones for our missions when cultivated and stewarded and equipped properly with the right resources. So, quick pause for an activity. I've talked about all of these different people and groups and ways to connect, and I want to give you a couple minutes to activate on it in the moment rather than taking this as homework. So I want to invite you to go to the drawing board and identify 4 potential partners or someone who can connect you in each of those 4 categories. Current partners that are underutilized, low-hanging fruit, close enough to touch kind of groups, second-degree connections, and mission-aligned in your communities. And while you think about it, because I know silence is not always ideal, here's how I would do this. So we have a really good relationship with this group called the LA Trial Lawyers Charities. They give an annual donation. Sometimes they'll do in-kind donations when we need them. But we can do so much more with them. And because trial lawyers are their members, definitely need to think about how each of them can support us, particularly financially. Under low-hanging fruit, right before we all went into lockdown, I met a ton of faith leaders at a meeting of the LA County Department of Mental Health faith-based advocacy group. Started some really good conversations. They've just obviously dried up, but I need to rekindle those and think about how they can get involved for our next big event, which is our Winter Wonderland event for our families. Under secondary connections, I know that every one of my board members is part of other communities. My development team is actually doing one-on-one calls. We've divided and conquered. We're going to do one-on-one calls with each of our board members and split them up and just do sort of a Q4 network strategy talk. Hey Bob, let's talk about a mission. Here's all the cool things that are coming up. Our gala's in October. This is coming up. Here's that. What do you want to do? What are the 2 or 3 things that you can do to support? And just be incredibly relationship based and equip them with what they need to be successful. And finally, mission aligned. We need more mentors with experience in childcare, so we can match our parents with them who are interested in that career pathway. So I have on my to-do list to research some early childhood master's programs, look at who they list as their community partners, and think about them as potential recruitment resources and how I can work with those master's programs to raise awareness with their students and their faculty. So sort of how can they be again, a 360-degree partner. So I've talked a lot. Maybe you had some ideas that came out of that. Maybe this is homework, but I encourage you to think about it strategically. Finally, just like donor prospecting, not every potential partner is created equal. Depending on a dozen factors, a partnership with some candidates will just mathematically do more for you than others. And I know this to be true. Your time is limited. We don't have time today to go into all the ways that you can qualify the potential value of different partners. But here are some of the factors that I consider, especially in a city like LA where, we're big. As you start to think about candidates at the most basic level, you can do a gut check about the potential return on your time. At the most quantitative level, you can develop a rubric and parameters that kind of measure or estimate their worth to you. It's okay to think of them this way. It's okay to think a little bit more transactionally about them now so that you spend your time on who you want to invest your time in, because some may meet your needs and some may not. So take a few minutes here for questions if you want to pop them into the chat, or just take a bio break. We all perform better when nature is not calling. So let's take 3 minutes.
Hey Brian, it's Gretchen, and there is a question in the chat from actually Alana, but I was also thinking the same thing. How do you make inroads with an alumni association if you're not an alumni? Yeah,
I'll get into this more in sort of engaging potential partners, but I think the basic is get a phone call. Or find an inroad. I mean, I think this is one of those things where, if you are in a space with your volunteers or with your staff, right? Like, where'd you go to college? If you went to college. Obviously, there's sort of a privilege and aspect here, so I want to name that. Not all of our volunteers, not all of our colleagues have a college degree, but for those who do, where'd you go to college? Does your college have a local alumni chapter? Can you help us get in? Often the information is actually just online. It's really easy to find. And yeah, there's a little more firepower when there's an alum making the introduction or getting in the door. And actually that's delegation, that's leadership. So I would say those. Brittany, thanks for coming for half an hour. I know we're jumping from Zoom to Zoom. Appreciate it. We got 2 minutes left in this little break. Any other thoughts or quandaries coming to mind? I'm here to help.
Brian, while people are thinking or just taking a quick bio break, do you have a success story? And can you outline maybe the top 2 factors that you thought were really critical to the success?
Yeah, I would say that most recently, let's think. LA Care is a pretty big health insurance and healthcare provider. We got connected to them a long time ago. They do philanthropy. They also, part of their mission, they care about health. And we got connected to them really only in early 2019. They, through the relationship, which was actually through one of our staff members, they gave I think, $2 or $3 grand to our gala that year. During quarantine, during COVID, we didn't do much with them. They sort of fell off the radar. And actually earlier this year, I sort of reached out to my contact. I was like, hey, Mary, can we chat? We've got a lot of great things going on. We've got great things that align with your goal to foster family, foster health, encourage healthy habits with families. We're going to be the on-site service provider for a brand new permanent supportive housing development in West LA. It's right in the middle of your territory. I didn't say all this, but gave her enough to hook her in. We talked. I built out a proposal that they would help that a $10,000 gift would sponsor some in-kind donations. Some welcome home kits for those families before they move in. And within days, she said, I love it. Here's 10 grand. I also built out for her a whole list of brand benefits to make sure that we are lifting their brand as well, which would include a flyer in every and a sticker on every welcome home kit, flyers in the lobby and in the community room, social media post, website mention, and a blog post. She loved it. I got $10,000. During that phone call, I said, we also have our gala coming up. If this is not the thing that you're interested in, menus are really powerful. People need options. You gave, $2,500 to it back in 2019. We obviously didn't do it last year, but let me just shoot you the sponsor page website where they can donate online and have the list of all the levels. If this is something more up your alley, sometimes events or something that someone wants to, sometimes they just want to cut a check for an event rather than the whole thing of the welcome home kits or an in-kind kind of programmatic thing. Program development, whatever it is, everyone has different needs. I got an email from her just yesterday saying, hey, you're confirmed for another 10 grand for Imagine Mall is our gala. So in the course of 2 months, just a genuine phone call, trying to meet them where they're at, understanding their goals and needs. And we're 20 grand richer. So that is a success, I would say. Just reading into the chat a little bit, pandemic has created so much turnover. Yes, rebuilding. There's no bad time to rebuild, right? There's always an excuse to say, hey, it's been a while. There's always an excuse to say, hey, we've got something coming up. Hey, here's a blog post, really cool news, a recap. Yes. There's an org that my org helps support. Don't know what they do for us in return. Yes. And many partnerships are centered on philanthropic needs. Advice for how to strategically hand this duty off to a development professional. Ooh, that's interesting. Partnership. Well, I'll talk about that more. I want to dig into chapter 3.
All right.
Engaging potential partners, and I think this will answer maybe some questions. Now that you've started identifying your targets, it's time to get to the meeting. And literally, that's the only goal. Get the meeting. Put that baby tree in the ground. And every gardener knows that the most important part of the garden is the part beneath your feet. So to get the meeting, we need to know how to ask and whom to ask. Work internally to determine who you're going to approach at that partner and who should do it. Consider who should be part of that first meeting as well, whether it's the very first meeting or the reignite the relationship meeting, and any internal goals for the meeting, right? You want to bring firepower, you want to leverage relationships, because ultimately we are all in the business of relationships. To this last point about your goals for the meeting, we might not know a ton about that partner, especially if they're at a handoff or they're kind of cold. Learning about them is the goal of the meeting. But it does not hurt to think creatively and strategically about how they might help you. Make your guesses, but let the conversation inform your outcomes. If you've already got someone to do a warm intro, leverage them and make it as easy and foolproof as possible by providing a template. Eliminate any barriers to success that are in your control. Follow up after your initial outreach is key and your time is valuable. 3 attempts via phone and email using templates, and then I cut my losses for now. No lead is ever dead. I once got asked that in an interview. When is a lead dead? And I said, never. And she was like, that is the correct answer. And I know my time is limited, so I slot them into the revisit pile and follow up another day. Even as we do that dance of email and phone follow-up, we need to add value to the recipient. So share a great recap from your COVID-safe event. Link them to a fresh new webpage from your list links. More on that later. Or invite them to a webinar you'll be attending. Maybe it's an EDI webinar. Maybe it's something that you saw that a partner is doing, or any one of those email lists that you're on. The more personal you can make it, the better. If one of their members just donated a bunch of boxes of diapers for your moms, send a photo and celebrate that partnership. That's an excuse to reach out. This would also fall under appreciation, which we'll talk about later. And finally, once I get that meeting date and time, I've made it a habit to ask attendees if they're open to a video, but given out if they are zoomed out. there was, I do remember, a time we just did phone calls. So from a practical perspective, this defines whether you'll be providing a Zoom link or a conference call line. But really more importantly, from an expectation setting perspective, it messages really clearly that you are the type of partner who makes decisions together, you engage in dialogue, you honor our humanity, and you understand that these are trying times for all of us. Once that meeting date and time are locked in, get out a confirmation email quickly with an agenda based on a template, of course, and no more than 2 attachments for the attendees to review in advance for an efficient meeting. Then grab all of that email copy and the attachments and include them in your calendar invite with the conference call info or the exact video conference link. Remember, not everybody is as tech savvy as you are or as familiar with your software of choice. There's Teams, there's Zoom, there's Meeting, there's Duo, there's all these things. If your grandpa couldn't understand it, make it clear. Start tracking that relationship in your CRM. If you are not tracking your partnerships in your CRM, I strongly encourage you to look into your options. Institutional knowledge is easily lost and spreadsheets fall into neglect. My staff will tell you I'm a broken record about this. If we don't document it, it did not happen. If you win the lottery and move to Fiji, I don't know about the history with that org, I'm gonna look really, really bad. And our organization is gonna look bad. I also need to acknowledge that this is part of white supremacy culture, right? Worship of the written word based on Akun's work. There is a balance between over-reliance on data and documenting and the fact that we honor people and we value people who are better at it, and the fact that we need it at a minimal level. So I want to remember that this worship of the written word is real, and it is damaging and is harmful and does not acknowledge all of the strengths that people bring. And the history is important, and it ultimately allows us to do better work. So it's a balance. Finally, a day or 2 before the meeting, I send a check-in email with that exact same link for the virtual meeting or the call-in line or the address and arrival and parking instructions. Share how enthusiastic and excited I am for the meeting, and maybe 1 or 2 new links to inspire them, plus those previous collateral pieces so they're at the top of the inbox. And I just use calendar reminders to remind myself to do this, because otherwise it will fall through those cracks. So speaking of those attachments, having clear and useful templates and internal tools and external collateral is one of the most important steps we can take in advance to set up relationships for success. So here are all the tools and templates I've developed with and for my team. I will not review all of the internal email documents. They're pretty clear. But under internal tools, you will see internal agenda with key points. So this is both a training document for new staff and a work framework for what a meeting can be, as well as some specific examples of questions to ask as we get to know a new partner. So it is down in the resources section of this presentation, so you can take a look at it later. And then finally, your list of links, which I mentioned earlier, is an internal resource document that contains easy copy and paste links and boilerplate descriptions to the news and info that demonstrate impact that partners and donors want to know about. So let me say that one more time. Copy and pastable links and boilerplate descriptions for the news and information that demonstrate the impact that your partners and donors want to know about. Having this list, of course, requires that the content actually exists. So you'll want to work with the communications team to create concise and descriptive overviews of your organization's most important news, your exciting projects, your innovative initiatives, your annual report. Easy one that we all do. Having these on hand is so useful, so you do not have to constantly be looking at your org's blog page or on your website or in an old email to grab that content. Just go to your list of links, copy, paste, throw it in the email. Under external collateral, we all have an org one-pager or a fact sheet, so always a good thing to share. The other file I like to create is an engagement and volunteering menu. Basically, it gives your partner a bird's eye view of all the entry points that they can have into your organization, all the major activities that either the group as an entity or their individual members can plug into. So depending on your organization, all your volunteer opportunities, this could include sort of all of them or just the major categories. You can really slice and dice it however you want, but also be able to be sure to include your gala and your event sponsorship opportunities and your giving circles and your key donation drive or in-kind needs. Maybe they change over the course of the year. Anything that individuals or groups can engage with. I adjusted my normal engagement menu to be relevant for COVID last summer when we realized we'd be operating differently for a while. And so there's a couple examples in the resources section at the end of this presentation as well. One other, the other side of this coin is a high impact volunteering menu, which I think is a really cool tool to list pro bono and skill-based volunteer opportunities that might kind of constantly be changing. Thank you. So here at Imagine we list our task force, board committees, or special initiatives and needs of subject matter experts. And if you're talking to a church who wants to engage all their congregants, like this might not make sense. But if you're talking to Deloitte or a McKinsey, consulting firms whose employees have very limited time, specific skill sets, want their impact to be strategic and focused rather than broad in general, this will resonate more with them. I think this also resonates for some of potentially your major donors who, again, might not be the broad blast, but might want to do something really specific and impactful for your org. But for both kinds of groups, a useful tool could be a short word template with a few photo options that a partner can customize to digitally promote your COVID-safe volunteering or engagement opportunities. This is a great way to do some mass outreach while we're all still figuring out, COVID and quarantine. Sometimes I bring this up near the end of that initial meeting, like, hey, can you share this volunteer opportunity? Here's some copy and paste text for you. Great way, great and easy ask for someone who can just throw it over to the communications person and say, hey, put this in an email, put this on the internet. Of course, creating and maintaining all of this requires a major investment. It'd actually be a great managed project for an intern or a skill-based volunteer. Great thing for a Vista if you are trying to get into that November cohort, which I am. But no matter how they get created, these tools will eliminate having to reinvent the wheel for every new email and partnership, and will allow you to strategically define your internal processes, your tone and approach, and the options you want to present to partners. You control the message when you control the content. So finally, the big day has arrived. First of all, set yourself up for as much success as possible from your room. Log on early, avoid those technical difficulties, even if you just got off another call on the same platform. Go to a room where you won't have that street noise or be sweating profusely. And most importantly, take care of your biological needs before the meeting. Nobody focuses or performs well when nature is calling. The goal of this meeting is to co-create a vision for partnership. And the means to that end are getting to know each other, understanding their capacity and systems and their needs, and helping them understand your capacity, programs, and needs as well. So here are some of the questions I asked to learn more about a group's capacity and goals around volunteerism. Broadly speaking, the goal is to understand their approach, structures, and capacity. This is that meeting framework that's down in the resources section. So I'm gonna go past this and you can check it out later. I find that during the virtual meetings, it's helpful to facilitate my agenda just a tiny bit more directly than I might during an in-person meeting, while still being a good listener. During virtual calls, we don't have that same level of body language or the physical space to guide the flow of speaking. So a tiny bit more structure, maybe calling on people, going around in a circle, during intros, it eliminates some of that uncertainty. But without those cues, we also need to intentionally create space for dialogue. So it's a tough balance while serving as facilitator and participant, but I think being mindful of that is the first step. I find that taking notes during a video meeting really takes me out of the moment. So if someone else in your org can lend 30 or 60 minutes, ask them to be a note taker. It allows you to be fully present for this relationship building opportunity, and it's a great training and succession planning tool. And lastly, we've got to be human. We are not working from home. We are all coping with national simultaneous crises from home while trying to get work done. So I think acknowledging the difficulties of these unprecedented times and thanking your attendees for making the time will go a long way to show what kind of person you are and reinforce the care and compassion you will bring to this partnership. After the meeting, send follow-up notes documenting your conversation to ensure you are moving forward on the same page with action items highlighted, and track it all in your CRM. That's a lot. That's the skyline, not the baseline. But I want to know, from a polling perspective, how prepared are you and your staff today to lead a strategic volunteering partnership conversation? So a poll will show up any moment. But this is not just you, this is also your team. So whether you sit in development or marketing communications or in program, who's your team that does outreach, and how prepared are you today? Take 15 more seconds to think about it. I'm going to turn my fan on. It's only 72 and sunny here in LA, but you know, stuff is hot. All right, final votes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see how it does. Yeah, we're blessed here. Minimally to moderately split 50-50. I feel you. We are all, again, we're all at one place. And the road is not easy, but it's there, and we know how to get there. So let's do one more pause. I know I talked a lot about how to get a simple meeting, but let's dig into that for a minute. And actually, Alana, I think this answers your question a little bit. I would have a handoff call. I would do an intro, build the relationship, build the person's credibility who you're handing off to, and say they'll take really good care of you.
Thank you.
Brian, this is Gretchen, and I really liked how you talked about having, so much of this prepared and, ready to go, and especially, here's some copy and paste text, because I think that can be a real barrier for folks. And I'm just wondering, this sounds like, and I'm even thinking in terms of the Alive board, this would be just a great project for a skilled volunteer to put all this together for you. I mean, you've got this laid out so nicely, but a great way to involve someone in your organization that has some great skills here, and just a great way. And I wondered if that is something that you've utilized in your organization, or if this, you talked about a Vista, this is your blue sky project. If I had a Vista, this is what they do.
Yeah, I have never had the capacity to hand this off to someone else. I have done all of this on my own, but I think what that gives me is that 360 view of all of the different pieces that need to get into it. And the day, dirty secret, none of us are at our current organization forever. The day that I move somewhere else, and when we are less prepared than my current organization is, this is one of the first things I'll do, right? I'll think about who and how we can collaboratively do this together, and maybe do sort of a big, managed project. Use some project management tools or systems to make sure that we have all the pieces moving in place, and set it up. Angela, that is a lot. Cool. That's exciting. Yeah, integrating two systems, and especially all of the content and collateral. That's going to be fun. I don't know everything about the Vista program, but I do know that there is a November cohort. Descriptions are pretty much live on the AmeriCorps website right now, and I know we're recruiting. We're trying to find a Vista for November to November. For first year orgs, it costs somewhere like 15 grand, but you get a 40-hour a week person who wants to learn and wants to be in the field. So yeah, I love this. Or it's a great intern or volunteer managed project. So we'll have more time for Q&A at the end, but I want to get through our last chapter, which is chapter 4. Now that you have planted that little sapling and ensured that the soil is fertile, comes really the hardest part, ensuring that a healthy tree produces fruit year after year. So here I distinguish between cultivation and stewardship. During cultivation, you're still making sure the plant survives year 1. That means still being pretty hands-on with it. But instead of water and pruning, it's starting small by focusing on those initial wins during the first 3 to 6 months. Short, small-term plans turn into initial wins, during which you're strengthening the relationship with the partner point of contact at the top and planting more seeds by building relationships with members as you engage them. This momentum drives energy to create medium-term plans together and more wins, which creates this virtuous cycle of relationships and opportunities, all of which scales up to a year-round relationship. And that's when you're stewarding a real partnership. You know, the trust is there. It's reinforced by leadership at the top and diverse member relationships at the bottom. The mission is front and center because you are constantly talking about it. And the wins are there, which turn into these positive memories that you come back to drive future engagement. Here, our job is to continue executing the game plans we've co-created, while being adaptive and flexible when new needs and opportunities arise. What was once a tiny sapling has grown into a tree you can be really proud of. And all of this is undergirded by a steady stream of appreciation. So here are a few key practices during the cultivation phase. First of all, I do a lot of documenting. Writing things down ensures alignment and supports accountability. When possible, talk with other departments in your organization to make sure you're accounting for all of your organization's needs and capacities that make sense for this specific partnership. You know, if you're talking to Hulu and you don't ask them for some free subscriptions for your clients, it's a missed opportunity. Big asterisk caveat here, of course, you need to have the social or relational capital to spare for things, for asks like that. So think really critically about the asks that you want to make now and the asks that you want to save as backups or for when the relationship is strong. When it comes to the partner's engagement with you, this landscape has shifted a lot due to COVID. So think critically about how you can continue to offer your partners opportunities to make a difference within your organization's unique pivots. Think creatively about appreciation and how to build the individual relationships with members via that activity. If the virtual activity, LinkedIn is one way to do this that I think sometimes blurs the line a little bit between the personal and professional, but can be incredibly effective when you shoot a message to that person over LinkedIn and say, hey, thank you so much for participating. You know, hope we can do more together. Let's build our network and support each other. Finally, post-engagement, go hard on appreciation. We have to do it now more than ever. Network it with those folks you meet. Share a recap and a Facebook photo album with your partner point of contact for them to share in their newsletter or at their next meeting. Work with your communications teams to identify other ways to highlight the partner digitally. Maybe that's a blog post, maybe that's your newsletter. If they played a major role in engagement, one way that I love to invest in relationships is considering a separate event debrief meeting with that point of contact to get their feedback and maybe even a volunteer on how things went and how they want to be involved in the next one, right? Anytime we can get into the room together to talk improvement and continual process improvement is good. And so now, 6 months to a year into the relationship, this transactional relationship is a true partnership and you're stewarding it. Continue to make good on your promises and continue ways to evolve the partnership, such as board member recruitment, larger gifts, connection to their high net worth clients, or special projects based on the partner's strength and positioning. You don't get what you don't ask for. Content will always be king, and sharing it is part of that undercurrent of appreciation. If there are no new partnership photos to share, as may be the case because of COVID, try a Throwback Thursday. It's a fun way to reminisce on the good times and spark the conversation about the next opportunity to work together. And finally, an annual or semi-annual partnership temperature check could be an effective practice for the right group. It's a great chance to get their feedback on the relationship, the partnership, explore new ideas, and importantly, learn about changes the group is experiencing so you can offer solutions and add value to them. I did this a couple months ago with one of our big faith partners, and the associate pastor that I met with was like, man, we're struggling with getting people to show up for virtual services and for small group. So I said, hey, how can we be a speaker at your next one? How can we bring in a lived experience speaker to do a testimony, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to do just one more chat engagement here, which is, what's a strategy or an insight? As we get to the end of this kind of presentation, what's a strategy or an insight that you're just something that's rolling around in your head? What can you do? What can you take on next week as you think about all the opportunities ahead of you? Is it a low-hanging fruit? Is it an appreciation tactic? Is it a secondary connection that you've thought about before, and like, we just need to make that ask? What's a strategy or insight that you are walking away with today? And I will say, every time I do this conversation, I'm thinking, I'm remembering things. 30 minutes surfing, yeah, I like that. Like, who's in that sandbox? Who can you play with? Local college, yeah, colleges are great, especially if they do workforce development, if they have student volunteer groups, Greek, sororities and fraternities that want to get involved. Finance for a vendor list. I like that. Yeah, every vendor, you're already paying them. They want to see you succeed on some level. Yeah, one-on-one relationship building. It is always about relationships. I probably need to include more about that. Just like picking up the phone. That's how you get the meeting. The email is great, but a phone call with a script that you've already created and maybe some talking points, way better, far more impactful. So if I could summarize strategic volunteering, partnership building in just 4 pieces of advice, here's what they would be. When we plant a tree, not only does it grow, but it gives us food to grow. We are interdependent. Similarly, true partnership exists when we create win-win situations for both us and the partner. It requires them understanding your organization's diverse and changing needs and capacity, and asking the right questions to learn about the partner. At every stage of the process, the details, including documentation, matter. It applies to your research, to prepping your tools and templates and collateral, before, during, and after that first meeting, the planning that leads up to your first real engagement, the moves that you employ to build relationships at the top and with members, and appreciation throughout. Never forget that it takes 100 pennies to make $1. Third, you cannot grow success without a foundation. So pick easy initial wins to build momentum. These wins will create the feeling of success. Success you can document on paper and in photos, and relationships that will allow you to scale up your partnership. But hope and feelings alone are not a plan. Successful plans require communication and collaboration. And finally, to quote Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And the only way for people to learn your why, your passion and your mission, and what drives you to get up every morning and do this work is through relationship building. When we can talk with people and get beyond the what and the how, they will not only learn your why, but you'll learn theirs too. And through this exchange of ideas and energy and passion, they will become champions for your work. It will deepen the partnership. It will sow new seeds, and your little avocado tree will turn into an orchard. So with that, thank you. We have time for Q&A. We have 15 whole minutes, which I'm thrilled about. But first, let me go through some of those resources that I said I would share. So chapter 5, the last piece. So here's that internal agenda for a strategic partnership engagement meeting. Some intros, but who are you? who's the group? Again, what does community impact look like? What are their structures? What is their capacity? What are their goals? I find that learning about their goals, right? Do they care about hours? Do they care about dollars given? Do they care about number of trees planted? Like, what do they care about? If we can meet their goals, we will set ourselves up for success long term. And of course, next steps. Here are some engagement menus. The first one and the third one are ones that I have created. United Way of Greater Los Angeles being my last place of work. Little city, I think this is in like Colorado or something. I found this online, to be really transparent. But really good examples of, I think, of engagement menus. You'll notice that United Ways includes the giving societies. Over on my COVID edition at Imagine LA, I talk about our family fun events, our grab and goes, the welcome home kits. This is actually outdated. I should update it. Our special events, and we come to you. I really like this, that we can be your educational and thought leadership speakers, and we can do community impact consulting. Like if you're not sure what you want to do, hardware store down the street, we can help you. And volunteer mentorship, which is at the heart of our family partnership model. Here's that digital recruitment template that is a Word document that you can just send to someone and say, hey, put it in your newsletter, put it on your social media, put it on your intranet. Here is what we are seeking incredibly specifically. Here's exactly what it means. And volunteer management best practice, include the job description, or at least the major pieces of it in your promotion. It's almost like including salary benefit, salary information and job descriptions. It is an equity tool that ensures that people know exactly what you need and what they'll get. And then a couple of resources and readings that I kind of come back to time and time again to ground myself. Here are Imagine LA's key websites for you to see what we do. I got published almost 2 years ago in the International Society for Organizational Development and Change about how corporate volunteerism, how we can do transformative volunteerism and get people to understand not only what we do and get their hands dirty, but understand a little bit about their own why and their relationship to our mission, talking about power, privilege, and oppression. If you're not familiar with the term virtuous cycle, here is a nice explainer. Telling your story, this is the Marshall Gans method that comes out of Harvard. It talks about the story of self, story of us, and story of now, which is an incredibly powerful way to bring people in when someone says, what do you do? Instead of just saying what you do, we say why we do it and how can you make a difference and why it is relevant today. So I just did a 3-part training with my entire staff and board about how to tell your story and how to tell our collective story. So I love this, and I think the reason that I include it here is because telling our story is part of that why, getting beyond the how and the what and honing in on the why. Qualification, there is, the Wallace Foundation produced a partner effectiveness continuum if you really want to talk about how effective a partner could be. So that's an interesting resource. That Simon Sinek quote comes from his talk about the Golden Circle and how great leaders inspire action. I only mentioned once moves, but this idea of moves management, driving people through a continuum of deeper engagement, is a powerful development tool, but I think it also applies to partnership engagement. So here's a little bit from Nonprofit Pro, great resource. And healing community through kinship. This is Father Greg Boyle, the founder of Homeway Industries here in LA, which works with formerly incarcerated youth. And his thesis about how we must not go to the margins to heal others, but to heal ourselves. And when we do, and we allow those at the margins to inhabit the truth, we discover our mutual kinship and our exquisite shared humanity. And I love this as a grounding in why and what volunteerism can be. So just a few things here. So at this point, that's it. That's the king caboodle, 56 slides of it. So I wanted to, again, put my information up. I would love to be a resource for you now, because we got 10 minutes. And in the future.
Yeah, Brian, this is Gretchen. Thank you. My brain is definitely full, And so many great ideas to break it down. So again, I just so appreciate your time and expertise with us today. And I just have a sneaking suspicion that many orgs that you or groups that you may approach about partnerships, as much as on our side, we may feel unprepared and scared and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Have you found the same is true on the other shoe, so to speak,
Hmm.
in some cases?
Yeah, I think that's especially true. I work with a lot of corporate partners, and they all have such defined CSR and volunteerism, platforms and processes that they tend to know exactly what they want and what they have to give. But working with smaller groups, yeah, especially smaller faith groups who maybe even are newer or haven't built out their community impact sort of thing, they're just doing it on a very ad hoc basis. Yeah, they sometimes they don't know how they can benefit or really what we have to offer. There was a group I talked to again right before lockdown that I'm remembering, and she was, yeah, we have a parking lot. We do a community sort of market and resource fair every other, or like once a month. But we're looking for other ways that we can give back. And so as we went through that list of sort of all the ways that all the things we need, whether that's event space, whether that's donation drives, whether that's, even fundraising to support, a fundraising campaign. She was like, wow, you guys do a lot. Let me bring this to my team. Let me bring this to my ministry team and see what we can cook up together. Actually, can you come talk to them? And it was like, yeah, we can, because there's so much that we can do together, and you don't know what you don't know. So that's why I think having all those tools is so incredibly useful, because when they look at this, I wish I could hone in on this. I should just make this bigger. And they see, oh, you do a holiday event with gifts and crafts. We have someone who is an incredible crafter, and she made the cover, the cover slip for our tours in the Ark. Maybe she'd be interested in leading a workshop with your youth about how to do paper mache. Sure, man, absolutely. I have one of my alumni families. She's an entrepreneur. She has a cooking website where she posts recipes, and her real thing is meal planning, because you can save so much money, especially for families in poverty, by meal planning, by the week or by the month. So I was talking to her the other day about something else, and I was like, hey, would you be interested in leading a workshop for our families about meal planning? She's like, oh, I would love to. I already have a curriculum. Right? Let's do that. So a partnership doesn't have to be even with a whole institution. It can be with one person that multiplies their impact as well.
And there was a question from Angela Williamson. How long does this take to get to this level, and how much staff time dedicated to this?
That's a great question. I think with all of this, I don't have an answer, but the way that I would approach it is list things out and almost build yourself a little strategic plan for how you're going to get to this next level. What are all the mini projects? Completing the list of links and all of the work that goes into that. Completing this, creating this template, creating this list. What is the impact and what is the effort? So this is a pretty standard strategic planning strategy, where you say, how impactful would it be and how hard is it? And once you get that, you can put numbers on those, 1 to 5, 1 to 5. You can plot it out on a graph, and you can really see what are your quick wins, low impact, high effort. What are your major projects, high impact, high effort? What are your do it when you can, low impact but easy? And what are the things that maybe we need to find someone else to do this, or think about how we can make them more impactful? That's low impact, low effort. I would work collaboratively with your team to really think about what you want to do and how to sequence it, and build it out as a timeline. What do you want to start this quarter, and when's it going to be done? What do you want to start next quarter, and when's it going to be done? I would put a whole year to this, honestly, to really knowing the capacity that we have, knowing that we are all so stretched, what can we do this quarter? What can we start this quarter? And it might not be an immediate thing. If you're looking to revamp your volunteer sign-up platform, that's not a 3-month project. That's a 6 to 9 month project. You know, are you going to go with hands-on connect? Are you going to go with logistics? Are you going to, you know, if that's part of the needs that you have to build the foundation to climb up, give yourself the time. And then how long is it going to take? It depends on how many people you have working on it. But each project, you know, you can put out that effort matrix. That effort, is it low effort? Is this a 4-hour project, or is this a high effort? Is this a multi-person collaborative project where you do need to be inclusive in terms of who's in the room, whose expertise you tap into, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't have an answer, but I would really stretch it out based on your capacity and your needs.
Other questions? We have a few more minutes before I just share some live announcements.
Yeah, staff time depends on how many are working and managing, absolutely. But I do think this would be an incredible project for someone who's interested in, for volunteers or a group, like consultants. So I'll hone in on that for a minute. I've been working really deeply with McKinsey over the last many months. We have someone on our board who is a partner, and then he was able to loop us into their day of impact last, oh boy, it was a long time ago. I think it was like last November. Talked to a lot of people. They were really excited about who we were. Out of that came a couple of people who were really passionate, and they, because of who they are and because of their line of work, they're very strategic, thoughtful, and action-oriented people. So they said, yeah, sign me up. How can we help? So they're literally doing all 90 plus interviews for our 2022 to 24 strategic plan. They're taking it, they're grabbing the horns and rolling with it. So I think when we talk about people who are, or at least see themselves as incredibly intelligent and strategic and limited capacity, this is an area where they can mobilize other people like that or work together on a project that's not going to be, it's not going to be hygiene kits, it's not going to be snack packs. And no offense to hygiene kits and snack packs, they're very important. Kids love those gummy bears. But this is the next level for a donor, right, giving their time as a volunteer who really wants to make a strategic impact. Any other thoughts or questions rumbling around as you leave with after drinking from the fire hose like this?
Well, Brian, if you don't mind, I have a slide to share from a live. So I would like to share my screen for our last minute or two. Thank you. All right. So pretty much here it is. And you can still type questions for Brian in the chat, but I'm going to just go over a few upcoming things for Alive. So we have a few save the dates. So in October, we actually don't have another Alive Academy because there is going to be the very exciting annual hybrid conference. And this year's theme is diversity, equity, and inclusion, real impact for the real world. So I know, Brian, that's a great tie-in for yours. And then on November 3rd, which coincidentally is my birthday, we are going to have Karina Sadler doing an Alive Academy presentation on creating your professional brand yesterday. So Karina's very involved with volunteer engagement work and has a lot of knowledge to share. And then later in November, we have a bonus one because November is Mental Health Month, which I'm sure we can all benefit from. So Kira Altman of LEAD is going to be talking on overcoming hustle culture. So that's fantastic. And the last thing I want to mention is just that we have a number of volunteer positions open at the Alive organization, and they are in different subcommittees, committees, managing different projects or co-leading different projects, perhaps with another member. So if you have questions on those, you can reach out to Gretchen And we'll put you in touch with our board, and I might also assist with answering some of those inquiries. So we'd love to hear from you. Thank you also to Gretchen for helping today, and to Paula Allen, who is in the audience today, but she is actually the vice president of our. She oversees our programs and advocacy committee at Alive, which is who organizes these Alive academies. So thank you to Paula for putting this together, and of course, thank you to Brian. Do you have any final remarks you'd like to share, Brian or Gretchen?
No, nothing else to share. Just thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I love being surrounded by people who we're all rowing in the same direction, even if we're at different places in the boat. So thank you for the opportunity.
And I will also say thank you to Brian for his expertise, and Alana for hosting a lot of great information. Again, I'll get this recording finished up, and Brian, if you'll send me that slide deck in whatever format you like, we'll get those posted on the Alive members only side. And just wish everybody a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.